The Ford Focus is the blue oval at its best, starting with the Mondeo in '93, then the Puma in '97, and now this, the Focus in '98. It was a time of peak confidence for the US car giant. The Focus had distinctive styling, fantastic ride and handling, and great performance. We've got this 2004 ST170 edition to take it out on track here at Mallory Park to see why it's Britain's best. Fast forward. So to understand really why the Ford Focus is such a game-changing car, probably not just for the blue oval but for all family hatchbacks, you've probably got to look back at where Ford had come from. They'd spent most of the 80s dominating the sales charts. The Escort was the best-selling car in Britain for much of the 80s. And the Mark V came out in 1990 hoping to continue that dominant form. But the trouble was, they'd been complacent. Ford had brought out a car that was just marginally better in some areas than the Mark IV that it replaced. And the market had moved on. The competition from Europe and Japan had just got that much better, and the Escort had been caught napping. So much so that Ford then spent most of the 90s trying to rectify it, and you'll see subtle refreshes of the Mark V in '92 and in '95, just trying to slowly improve the car. But in truth, it was never the car it perhaps should have been to really take on the best cars in the class. So very much early in the 90s, a change of ethos happened, certainly at Ford of Europe, fronted by Chief Engineer Richard Parry Jones, the late great Richard Parry Jones. There was a more comprehensive engineering focus on new models to come out in the 90s, starting by world products like the Ford Mondeo. It was much heralded for its dynamic skills, its excellent ride and handling, and it was a world car to sell in all of Ford's key markets, including North America. And it was incredibly well received, so it definitely gave the company confidence that it was on the right lines. The Focus was going to be the next all-new product in that line. The Puma came out just before, but effectively it was a warmed over Fiesta. But the Focus really was a chance to reinvigorate a category that it had dominated since the early 80s. It was bold without being offensive. It was radical without being alienating to the Ford audience. It had largely a new range of engines. The 1.4 CVH soldiered on for a little bit, as did the previous 1.8 Dagenham turbo diesel. But mostly it was all new Z-Tech engines. And they were good. They were very good, in fact. But the real pièce de résistance of the Focus was its ride and handling. Its rather complex multi-link rear suspension gave it a balance of ride and handling almost unlike anything on the market, and it was certainly the best thing Ford had ever produced. And that was just your base spec models, you know, your regular spec additions, whether it be an LX or a prestigious gear model. They were just all great to drive. And looking inside the car, just look at this fantastic swooping fascia. Very much like the exterior, it's got this lovely radical design, and yet it works, it's functional, it's ergonomic. It's actually really well made. The sort of materials feel nice. Yes, it's plastic, but it's quite soft to touch. It all works very well. Lovely clear vents that sort of all give you the ventilation you need for passenger and driver. All the switch gears close to hand. The gauges in front of you are large and legible. The steering wheel is really chunky in your hand. That direct steering gives you confidence through the corners. The controls are all close to hand. These sort of lovely stalks here, and the audio controls just down here make it an ergonomic masterclass. It really is good. But no Ford hatchback would be what it is without the Halo models. Obviously, fast Fords of old would have worn an XR badge. The world wasn't quite ready for an RS edition Focus, so they kept us waiting. So the ST170 that we're driving today was that kind of warm-up act, introduced in 2002. They really just wanted to enhance the already excellent platform that the Focus had, so there were tweaks to the suspension. The Z-Tech engine was given variable valve timing and became known as the Duratech, and had 170 horsepower, hence ST170. There was uprated brakes, discs all round, 300mm discs at the front, 280 at the back, and a 6-speed Getrag box, which we believe, and someone's going to tell me in the comments that we may be wrong here, that 6-speed Getrick box it shares with the Mini Cooper S. The ST170 came out in 2002, and then the fire-breathing RS model that we featured in a previous video came out just a short while afterwards, and arguably that was the one that stole the ST170's thunder, but that was still a fantastic car. But where the ST170 has is accessibility. It's a warm Ford, a fast-ish Ford that was great value, and it was available as a 3-door hatch, a 5-door hatch, and latterly a 5-door estate as well. So it was practical, and yet it was exciting enough, desirable enough, the perfect halo car in that respect. It was only on sale in the end for about 3 years, so that meant that the production run was relatively short by Ford standards, and actually they didn't really sell as many as you might think. The ST170 models, they sold about 14,000 here in the UK, just under, and about the same number in North America. And according to a certain website, howmanyleft.co.uk, there's actually only about 1,700 left of these registered on the road. That's a ridiculously low survival rate. So whereas not so long ago an ST170 would have cost you a few £100 here in the UK, the values of these are starting to go up. You can still get them for around the £3,000 mark, but good ones, low mileage ones, unfettered ones, are starting to climb north of 5. They're going the way of a lot of fast Fords, very seriously up. I guess the difference is with this one though is that whereas some Fords seem to, their values rise beyond their actual perceived capabilities, the Focus, almost of any description, but particularly the ST170, is a car great enough to deserve that premium pricing. I think driving this one today, this is an example we've been running as a project car through Fast Forward and Car Mechanics, is a really fine example of the breed. It cost us just shy of £3,000. It's got 86,000 miles on the clock. It runs remarkably well. That engine it's got a slight burble to it. It's probably not a particularly characterful 4-cylinder induction roar, but it works. It's quite pokey. Throttle response is good. A little deep urgency there as you sort of get off the line, which is nice. So it means you can drive it at 5/10 to the supermarket, and you can drive it at 10/10 if a B road allows that opportunity. The ride is really good. You would think a car with such a nimble handling wouldn't ride so well, but this rides as well. If you really want a great modern classic, one that's almost certainly going to rise in value in the months and years ahead, then the Ford Focus ST170 should be on your shopping list. It's blue oval brilliance, and I love it.